Hi. Oh, I've got a weird effect on my shoulders. Maybe I've chosen the wrong top. But hi, I'm Pharaoh, and today I'm going to just in my abandoned save. I basically kind of visited a lot of systems. Why isn't that working? That's better. I was doing that thing. Distracted. Hang on a second. Right. I've got a lot of extra things in my discovery list, and I haven't been to everything yet because I've jumped around to a few extra systems recently, and I don't like to leave things undiscovered. For instance, I've got fauna there that's undiscovered. There might be a few underground creatures that I'd do off stream if I can't find them, but apart from that, I like to go to all the planets. I like to see all the fauna, so that's what I'll be doing today. Hi Alpha, it's good to see you. So where am I at the moment? I'm in Limito. I probably have been to all of these. I think that's probably my first system. Let's go up to one of these. So let's go to Tatesk, or however you pronounce that. We'll go there first. Right, so Tatesk space stations. Oh, it stopped that thing where it was cutting out. There was a bit of a bug here where if you went to space stations and tried to go to bases, you couldn't. So they fixed that. That's good to see. Looks like it was the last system I was in. Is that the one I was going to? Hang on. No. Tatesk. Tatesk. There we go. Let's start there. Have a look around. I might also see if I've got a t-shirt that's a little bit less green on the screen, just because it's possibly interfering. Let me just try that a second. Let's go to take myself off the screen. There we go. That looks a bit better. Well, I've got this inside out now. Wardrobe issues. I don't know. I'll leave it for a little while. Let's just get going. At least I haven't got a fuzzy look to me. I'm not fading into the background. Get a bit central. So in this system, I've only been to the one planet, and I've only discovered half of the fauna. I think it might be underwater stuff I haven't looked at yet. So let's first of all go to the other planets and see what we've got here. looks interesting. That is a Heimel, so it's going to be a frost, snowy planet. This game did teach me quite a few words, and Heimel is one of them. Ferrite. I'm tempted to build a mine at some point, but I might just build a gold mine. I can always put a all these smaller ones on a magnetized ferrite deposit. Might see a few stutters to start with because we've recently had an update from NVIDIA, and it means that all of my textures need to be reloaded because Windows doesn't have texture impressions at least pre-set up like for instance the Steam Deck or some consoles do, which is frustrating. You get this kind of lag every time you update something. It's a very unusual rock there. I was wondering what it was. Right, so this is obviously a very cold planet. What have we got here? 8 creatures, 4 ground, 1 rare ground in the south, whilst the betting I'm in the north, uncommon flying, and a couple of underwater. I'm in the north, okay. But I'm not too far in the north, so let's go south first. I did say south, didn't it? Murphy's Law says it's always going to be the opposite. Nice planet. Keep an ear out for hurricane warnings. Tornadoes can be a killer in this, as I did discover almost to my horror only recently in this save, but only when I was just quickly checking something, not when I was actually streaming. I nearly died. You will usually get a second, well, you'll always get a secondary storm warning if they're on the way. I saw a ground. There it is. Those tunneling creatures. Don't see much else in this spot. Where's my ship? A cave. Maybe that's a good place to take shelter. Get a bit of my hazard protection back up. I got him, didn't I? Yeah. Might start working towards the nutrient ingester. I haven't got that yet in this save. The only reason, if I was going to do that, I'd also need to start making some bases where I can actually farm some animal goods. Come on, get up there. something down there. 290. There it is. Seeing remarkably few. Ground creatures. I think I've seen 2. So 1, 2. So I've seen the rare always in the south one. So there's 3 more, but they are all rare. So no wonder I'm not seeing them. That's 1. Where's it gone? There it is. It's a roller. These have got like a mathematical variation. Quite interesting. They remind me of organic art from the 80s and 90s. Which was early procedural generation stuff. Recently been deep diving into how the procedural generation system work out in this game, in that hope that one day I might actually make a video about how it all works. There's some interesting videos that were made by various people in Hello Games quite early on in development, before the game was out and early days of it being out, that kind of go into more detail. This is a crazy planet. I thought I was low, and all of a sudden I've got like this huge hole here. Weird. I don't really want to go down there in Permadeath. It'd be one of those tricky places to not be able to land if I got into trouble. Just had my... See, that's the kind of thing that can happen just randomly. Shield lattice damaged by thing, and now I need antimatter. Partly to do with the settings I'm on. I can be very vulnerable to that kind of damage. I remember very early on in a permadeath save once, I got stuck in a hole. And it was really tricky to get out of it. Because I'd got everything broken. It was very early on in the save. I didn't really have many resources or many ways of getting out of it. Yeah, this is definitely purple system geography. Yep, it is. Very unusual geography. And this is one of the reasons I was watching some of the videos on procedural generation, because I think there's a bit of a clue in one of Sean's videos from when he was talking about how he was using different waveforms. A regret he had later on, once he'd already worked out how to do his procedural generation of the different terrains. He was regretting he wasn't using more modulation, which, for anybody that's not really familiar with waveforms, modulation is when you superimpose one wave on another wave. And theoretically, you can use that in very interesting ways. And I suspect this is the interesting ways that he decided to use it later on, when he realized that he could continue to have more different types of terrain when the if he produced more systems, because they stopped making new terrain in Origins because they realized that it would really upset people who had built bases. I always think people often used to say that it was the base builders holding back No Man's Sky, and I always used to argue it wasn't so much the base builders, because the base builders would quite happily rebuild all their bases. It was the people that had just built their first base, and then all of a sudden the terrain changes and their base is 3 miles under the ground or whatever. If you change the terrain dramatically, like they did in Origins, they brought in mountainous planets, for instance, which they did a different way by introducing new planets. So I never considered it to be the base builders holding it back. I think it was Hello Games realizing how much of a nightmare it would be to help people out of that situation if they were newer players. Imagine you'd just like done 10 hours of the game. You were just getting into it as a game you were going to play longer, and then all of your bases got messed up. That might be the point at which you decide not to play it anymore. Some snowy planets, you often find that things are slightly low in the ground, but I think it's deliberate. Like my feet are also slightly low in the ground. I think it's to suggest a layer of snow. Right, so have we got all of the ground creatures yet? We've got those two. Yeah, so yeah, we've just got 2 underwater creatures. The more you dig into procedural generation like this, the cleverer it is. I used to do, when I was a kid, I used to do procedural generation stuff, as you do as a kid obsessed with computers. But nothing even remotely like this. There's a passing comment in a book I read once about cellular automaton that suggested you could make an actual ecosystem using cellular automation, and you could theoretically have a realistic planet ecosystem. And it just made me want this game years before this game came out. It's not really an ecosystem, but it made me want this kind of... I mean, it could potentially become one if you really put the work in. It would be more than a game then. It would be more like a science project, but... That's that planet. It's actually a very interesting planet. I might come back and explore this at some point, because the terrain was pretty crazy. We've got the fauna, which is the most important thing, and we've got it in our discovery list. So let's move on for now. So we've got a redacted planet and a moon. Let's go to the moon. Tau. I do like it when we can actually pronounce things. This is going to be caustic. Weird flower planet. Weird floaty plant. Again, you're getting a few newer textures where it's just stuttering a little bit. Skipping a few frames as well. I do feel like if Windows ever wants to take itself seriously as that's huge, as a gaming platform, which they have signs of wanting to do, they've really got to stop messing with graphics card settings, which they've been doing recently. You are ugly. That sloth-like structure is always a bit weird. What have we actually got here? Only 7. Ground, flying, rare, all of them. Let's go north. Quite interesting. Make a quite nice plant for a wonder projector garden. What we're still looking for? One rare ground. Come on, where are you? Same or just a small version? It's just a small version. We've got a worm, but quite an ordinary worm. You rare? You didn't look rare. No, he's not rare. Pick these up, but there's nothing to do with them. I might as well sell them, I think. Oh, I got an actual chart there. It is worth picking them up. What was the chart? It was an exosuit. That's handy. Would be a good excuse to go to a different part of the planet just to find this last creature. Further around than I thought. Oh, we're immune as well, aren't we? Let's head up. There we are. So we even got that out of range. We've got a couple of those. Not those, but those are in my. I don't want to make one of those because I've got a few. Ah, there we are. There's the rare creature. I love it when things work out. It's a bird, not a bird, a mouse. No, it's not. Actually, I quite like those ones. Kind of like a terror bird. South American prehistoric creature. Not quite. Similar. So we should have plenty of carbon nanotubes. So it just makes no. Oh, I did have one there. Yeah. What it said I didn't. Am I looking at the wrong thing? Sometimes it gets confusing because of this is carbon nanotubes because those things are the wrong way around. The pictures. Right, so make sure I did get that. Yes, I did. So off to the main planet, I guess. No, we already put it on the main planet. Oh no, we haven't got all of the creatures. What we got there? Ground. Underwater, 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 underwater. One rare underground, which is possibly going to be the stumbling block. Let's go to the other planets first. So mark that one. Okay. What's my best protection? I've got one of each. Toxins. Need some better than C, really, but keep opening those damaged machineries. We should finally maybe get one. This is going to be a mountainous place. Let's go low because we want water. Oh no, this isn't the place where we want water yet, is it? Right, let's get out and see what we need. Flying, flying, flying. Underwater, underwater. All flying or underwater. And an uncommon ground. That's probably going to be one of the newer ones. It's right at the end of the list, and usually ground would be at the top of the list. So it's probably going to either be one of the large insects or something like that. Something newer, like a flower cat or something. My bet it's a large insect. It could be a beetle. How big is that? He looks big. Just says 1.3 meters, but that doesn't usually tell the full story. It's not super big. Get out of the water. Right, what else we got here? All those strange shrimp things. They're very nasty looking. I don't like them at all. Mercifully, they're not huge.
Weather update. Storm clearing.
So what have we got left? One rare, common, nocturnal. Another one. It's a bit nicer, isn't he? 3 meters. He's going to be a bit bigger. I think the 3 meters is like the not the length dimension. Where was it? Probably that one there. Keep an eye on my hazard protection. Keep an eye on my oxygen. Can't give myself oxygen. No, I don't want to go too deep because I haven't got any modules. I would just die. Because the water's too deep to get to the bottom to get the plants. You can do that with a lot of creatures. The I don't know why I've left myself in chatting. You can do that with a lot of creatures. You can also take advantage of predators. If there's a predator on the planet, and they will spook them and make them less. Make them so you can get them again. Or you can just exploit it by just jumping across the planet's surface from one point to another between two lots of animals. You work out where a couple of spawn points are. It's a very toxic planet, this one.
Technology recharged.
It's a little bit limited without being able to go too deep in the water.
Toxic potential falling.
Might need to find a bit of a shallower spot. It looks like it's just down there, 150 U away. I could probably get down there more easily from the edge of this. Although this looks very steep here. Go a bit closer to the edge.
Toxic protection stabilizing.
I always wonder if a rare underwater creature is going to be just a crab or something. So you need to be near the edge. What we still got? Common underwater, but nocturnal. Common underwater, nocturnal. Oh, so we've only got the nocturnal, so we need to go somewhere where it's dark. Fair enough. That's why we're not spotting any extras.
Toxicity
I didn't mean to do that. I meant to shut the hatch. Press the wrong button.
Toxic protection stabilizing.
Now, the trick with finding spawning points is to have lots of places in your... have traveled to a lot of planets and know what you're looking for. And look for ones that have got the... there's a flag that indicates whether something is in a herd or not. If you're finding a planet that's got the creature you want that's in herds, then it's easy. You really want to widely explore. Funny that. The game does support wide exploration. Like, I've already marked that spot in this save where I might go back, because it clearly had a lot of creatures, at least 2 or 3 herds and a couple of other interesting creatures. Is this even night time? It's hard to tell on some of these planets. Get off my ship to find out. 21:45, so it's, yeah, it should be.
Toxic protection falling.
We're probably either looking for those sunfish or the carp-like fish. We've got close to him now. This environment is nasty. Come on, where are you?
Toxic protection falling.
Running low on those.
Toxic protection falling. Received.
In a normal save, I'd just start swimming lower around, but I don't want to get too far away in this horrible planet. I don't want to go too deep in the water. Nope. A very impressive landscape. Ah, missed it. Something like that can really mess you up. I was deep underwater, for instance,
Incoming sub.
and then all of a sudden I had something break because of a hazard.
Toxic protection stabilizing.
Stay out of the storm. I need to find a less deep patch of water with less steep mountains around it. But on these kinds of planets, that kind of thing can happen. Hello, I've lost visibility completely. What's going on? No, it's just because the sky's so dark, I think.
Toxicity detected.
Yeah, it's a landscape I don't want to take too many liberties with. Again, an example of what purple systems can be like. A bit different to your mountainous planets, normal systems. Any flyers while I'm here? At least this protects you from the storm a bit. I say a bit. It protects you from the storm, full stop. Check where my hang on a second.
Weather update. Storm clearing.
Now that looks reachable. Didn't want to jump off. It'd be somewhere really difficult to get to.
Toxic protection falling.
There's one uncommon ground.
Received.
That a flyer? Presume so, yeah. Some of these things can be weirdly labelled, like beetles can sometimes be ground.
Toxic protection falling.
Grim looking place.
Toxic protection
Also one of those places where it never stops raining. So there's no storm at the moment. Actually, or is it? It says extreme, but I think the storm dissipated. So it's just extreme weather. It's going to be difficult to explore this place.
toxic protection falling.
Do I have a butterfly? I could use a butterfly. Yep. And a beetle. little bit concerned about. I'm not going to take the risk of this landscape. I was suddenly caught in a storm. I could imagine finding it really difficult to find a place to haul a ship in here. Way. Right, let's go a bit lower down in the landscape, even though we can't really see where we're going. Got no idea where I am. Daytime. We'll come back to the nighttime for the fish. I read one of those typical comments the other day that all planets are the same, they're just reskinned. And I'm thinking they've never been to some of these planets. Ground. It's all just cragginess. I do. Flyer there. How many have we still got to get flying wise? One uncommon flying, diurnal. That's still that uncommon ground. Is there anywhere down there I can call my ship in? I think there is. Ow. Let's try and see if there's somewhere I can perch it. Maybe not. Horrible place. Don't think ground creatures spawn on this kind of spot. That's over there somewhere. Oh, yeah. That's the other. Come on, stay on that ridge. Come on, stay on there. Yes. Got both of them. One. Oh no, that's just the same as the spikes. Oh, what are we doing? Flying just the ground and the underwater. Be nice if we could find some ground. None of this really counts as ground. I have to go somewhere else on the planet, I think. Where's my ship? Can I even get to my ship easily? It's going to be a bit of a challenge. Where is it? There. Get into my ship before this storm. Is that ground creature? No, it wasn't. Horrible planet. Quite enjoying it though. It's challenging. I wonder if we can get something to spawn on a little island. Even that looks a bit craggy. At least we've got flora here, so it means we could get fauna. Is this it's just caustic, but it's got nasty weather and it's got nasty terrain. Kind of planet you sometimes just need a break from. You can get off of it for a while and find somewhere nicer. I'll get my toxic back up. Damage, have I? No. I'll check the time. 6:40. That's 6, 8. Yeah, 6. Storm, we need you to dissipate, otherwise we're not going to do anything. Just a little bit of flat land would be nice. fell off there. Luckily, I have a little bit under there. Up a little bit of bolt hole just in case, somewhere where I can fill up the gap if we get a tornado.
Detected. Toxic protection falling.
Ah, there's one of them. It's a shoal. Okay. And there's the other one. Where's that? Where are you? You're not in the rock, are you? So where are you?
Toxic protection falling. Technology recharged. Toxic protection falling.
These are a pain, these dot things. So if they're in the... If they get positioned in the rock, then they stay in there. At least we've got a spawn point, so we can try and manipulate it.
Technology recharged. Extreme light toxicity detected.
Let's get a bit further out into the water.
Water toxicity.
Okay, we got that one.
Light toxicity detected.
So, one more common nocturnal. We didn't see it here.
Water toxicity detected.
Ah, there it is. That's the rock one again. You coming this way? Are you this one?
Toxic protection falling.
I think it's stuck.
Extreme water toxicity detected.
Not sure where it is now.
Extreme toxicity detected. Extreme light toxicity. Toxic protection falling.
Think I've got the ship water lander yet. No.
Toxic
That would be a lot easier at this planet.
toxic protection
Ah, wasn't paying attention to my toxic damage.
Toxic protection.
There we go.
Toxic protection. Stabilizing.
So the last underwater is also nocturnal. Very dark. Well, I saw a bit of a land bridge, but maybe it wasn't. Got a little... I'm thinking I'm seeing islands, but I'm not. It's a little bit shallower here, so let's have a look.
Stream. Detected. Toxic protection. Falling.
Ah, there he is. That was a pain.
Toxic protection. Stabilizing.
Impressive, though. Quite a lot of variety in these things. I think these have got a bit of mathematical variation in them. The way that these spines are warped. Right, try and find some land, an actual piece of flat land on an otherwise very craggy planet. Maybe had a chart, but I don't think I've got any charts. In my luck, something would be underwater. Hi, Ignition. You've changed your name again. I've been having a lot of fun, I guess you could call it. Frustration trying to find all of the animals on this very, very difficult planet. It's going to count as land where it could spawn. It's on the angles. So let's go up. Well, at least we've got a point of interest. There we are. There's our land creature. Oh, it's a bone. So that's all of those. That was hard. I also remember a criticism once where someone's saying it's just so easy to get all of the creatures on every planet. You just land and they're all there. Not the case now. How long did that take me? That must have taken me a good part of half an hour or more. There was no rare underground. There was just rare ground. There was no, I mean, it wasn't even a rare ground. It was, the ground itself was rare because there's so much cragginess. And you need a little bit of flat terrain, something that ground counts as ground terrain. This looks like a frozen world, perhaps. Wait, where are we? And then the underwater wasn't easy either, because it was just so immediately deep. This looks like a piece of cake compared to the last planet. This is where we get hit by a tornado and I die. No, it's abandoned. That's not going to happen. We've got nothing here to really look at in terms of fauna. So that's all the planets. So it's just going back to this one. I think I did everything else. 8 there. 11 there. 7 there. Need to get underground, rare, so we might not do that one. Underwater, underwater, underwater. Underwater. They're all common or uncommon. And none of them are in the south or the north. So that should be simpler. Isn't it? It's that one. I believe. Axmund Tower. Yes, it is. You know what? I haven't been drinking coffee. Let's drink some coffee. Pirate fight trick to find exotics. Any nice exotics, even if you haven't found a squid? Well, I did 2 whole streams of that and didn't find a squid. At least 2. I think I just did 2. Excellent to hear that switching to decaf actually worked or had some effect. I could live without decaf, without caffeine, but if I had negative effects, I guess I would just have to. Got him. Got already been here. So yeah, I've done I've done all of the ground. No, I've got one mostly nocturnal ground, so it could spot in the daytime, but unlikely. Let's do the water first then. Not a big tea drinker. I come from a big tea drinking family, but I never really got into it. And I did kind of briefly get into it as a late teenager. But then my wife doesn't drink tea at all, so we don't really drink it much in the house. We don't often have milk in because of that, because we often have black coffee. So even if I really fancy it, I have to have the milk in to do it. And it's just, I've just completely got out of the habit. If I go somewhere else and somebody offers me a cup of tea, I will drink it. I will drink a cup of tea in a cafe. But then nowadays, everywhere's coffee shops. One rare ground, one rare underground. So that's the mostly nocturnal we need to get next. I also have usually have some Diet Cokes handy for when I'm streaming if I still need a caffeine after my coffee, or some Diet Dr. Pepper sometimes. Got it. It's nocturnal, not just around. Where's the sun? I find Coke's far too sweet. Normal Coke, it's horrible. Someone gets it for you by mistake. If you ask for it somewhere and you get normal, it's like, oh, you just want to spit it out. It's so sweet. I never drank that as a child. When I was a child, it wasn't really a thing. It wasn't really a big thing in this country. Not for a long while. I mean, some people did have it, but it wasn't like huge. That was before the Steve Jobs changed the way that Coke was drunk. If you're wondering what on earth I'm talking about, look it up. I think I tried to look it up once to give somebody a link, and it was hard to find the anecdote. If people are really interested in how Steve Jobs changed the way we drank Coke, just ask. I've done all the underwater, haven't I? I'm getting confused. I'm confusing myself. Thinking about Coke too much. Want nocturnal ground creatures. I need a bigger patch of land, but I think I was so obsessed with getting that underwater creature. I keep thinking of underwater. They were all easy here. All right, I'll tell the story of Steve Jobs and the Diet Coke. When he used to work in marketing, and he worked for either Coca-Cola or a distributor of Coca-Cola or a major retailer. I think it was either a distributor or Coca-Cola themselves. But what they did is they worked on the principle that if you give people a lot of something, then they're more likely to want to continue to have lots of something. So he basically said, in a certain supermarket, just give away the large bottles of Coke, and they're like, yeah, but nobody wants large bottles of Coke. They don't go off the shelf. He said, yeah, we'll just give them away. You're not selling them anyway. You're going to have to get rid of them somehow. Just start giving them away. And sure enough, the next time people came in, they wanted 2 large bottles of Coke. And then the next time they wanted 3 large bottles of Coke. And he demonstrated to the supermarkets that if you sell Coke in large quantities in bottles, then they will get into that habit of buying it for the home. Until then, nobody was even bothering to try and sell large bottles of Coke because they just weren't convinced anybody ever wanted it. They just wouldn't order it in large enough quantities. But yeah, I mean, it's an interesting anecdote if you're into marketing. If you're not into marketing, it could be quite a boring anecdote. I find it really fascinating. Right, let's maybe have a little look for a point of interest. Well, you have to drink it fast, don't you? Or just buy more. I mean, Coca-Cola would just say, just buy more. But it's not really that good for you, large quantities of slightly look at that. Rare underground creature, instant spot. It's a nice one as well. That rare underground creature was easier than at least 3 or 4 of the creatures on that other planet, none of which were rare underground. So that's the whole system, I believe. guess we move on to this one. Depending on what we have to get. Well, we obviously we can get some of the things on here because we've got 13. So there is a rare ground. There's nothing underground on that one. That we just looked at. The common underwater, uncommon underwater. This is okay as well. All right, we'll go there. Yeah, my main consideration for drinking things like that is just fast caffeine intake if I want it. Coffee's better for you. Coffee's a lot better for you, actually. It's a source of soluble fiber. You can get that from decaf. We do have some decaf, actually. We've started brewing up some decaf occasionally. And some low calf as well. Thematically, it works that these places are abandoned, but I am getting a little bit bored of running backwards and forwards in abandoned mode. I do wonder if there's if the places that we park our ships are kind of a temporary thing. It would be really nice if instead of having these building areas in space stations, we had actual kind of ship docks. And then we could park anywhere on these stations. We could park outside like we did on these earlier. Right. Whichever planet's closest, I guess. This is going to be one of those places where the water disappears as you get closer. Be. I find some water. Incoming superheated storm. before the storm hits. Ground, flying. But one rare underwater still haven't got. That's usually deeper. Let's actually fly to a deep area while it's stormy. Deep water's a bit of a premium here. I feel like I see as much kelp sack recently. Landing on it then. Let's see if there's any deeper water, because whenever I see rare underwater, I always think predator, and they don't seem to spawn unless it's a bit deeper. Storming again. There's not any large areas. Let's try here. going to be a frustrating place to look for deeper water. Well, they can spawn. I mean, it could just be a crab anyway, but they can spawn not too deep water. It's just you have to be a bit luckier. You usually have to go down a bit to spot them. There he is. Was the predator. Very finny. So now we want a patch of land. Was that the planet with the other one we were on? Common ground, rare ground, rare ground. Rare ground always active, found in the north. Ideally, we want to be in the north. Let's find out where we are. We're in the south. Still don't have north on our compass. Very weird long-running bug to why we don't have north on the compass. It doesn't make any sense. Now I'm not finding any land, and I found deep water that I couldn't find earlier. That's typical. Very difficult to spot anything on this planet. Land. We got nighttime. Where everything we want is daytime. Mostly there. Always active, always active. Let's double check we are in the north now. Yes, we are. What time is it? 8 hours. Not quite midnight. That was just a night noise. Sometimes that can be a flyer, but it was just a night noise. Good place to get ferrite. If I remember when I get back in my ship. Working on the principle that rare creatures are just as likely to spawn in the day as night, but I'm never 100% sure. Get nothing here. It's about 355. Just fly approximately towards the sun. If you look at last year's pattern for when we got an update, we seem to get a very big update considering early on. But I think that was because it was something that they had delayed. But I also feel like they're on an accelerated path, as if they're trying to get somewhere. So you can't write anything off now. We won't get anything until February at the earliest. But if they are, as I suspect, on some kind of accelerated path, then all bets are off, really. We don't know when things would come. I need to do a review of the year at some point. I promised myself I'd make a few videos this week rather than just stream. And one of them that was logically a review of what we got this year. It's that time of year for reviews. And it has been a pretty big year. proportioned. Now, I think they're working towards something. Just mark my words and see if they turn out to be true. But I think they're working towards something. As I mentioned in my video about future, I feel like they might be trying to get to a point where No Man's Sky is more of a multiplayer game. Well, it has the option of more multiplayer than it has at the moment. And I think they needed to put a few things in place before that happened. For instance, I feel like they wanted the Corvettes out first. So I think this year is going to be a huge year for No Man's Sky. Obviously, I mean 2026 when I say this year. This coming year. What we're still missing. 2 rare ground. No, 1 rare ground and 1 rare ground in the north. Still in the north. So 2 rare grounds. I mean, if you look at the game generally and people's response to the game and people's complaints with the game and a reason that people might not hang around and play the game as much as some of us do, I would say the biggest reason nowadays is multiplayer. Sean's on record as saying that he likes to work with things that he knows that he can provide. So based on why people are dissatisfied with the game, he will try and focus on things that he can do, you know, he can work with and do something with. And I think the biggest grumble over almost the whole of the time that No Man's Sky has been in existence is multiplayer. First, there was lack of multiplayer when people felt like they'd been promised multiplayer. Then it was the limited multiplayer when we just had the orbs. Then it was multiplayer's quite limited and buggy. Now it's multiplayer's buggy, we can hardly play it. I feel like that's the big one. That's the one that they'd like to crack before they finish with this game. I don't think they'll ever feel like it's a finished game until multiplayer is a little bit more functional. What better present to give us on the 10th anniversary than a complete overhaul of multiplayer? But of course, multiplayer is expensive, so they've had to wait. But there's logic in my extreme optimism, even if it is a little bit extreme optimism. And there are a lot of people that just say, well, why do we want multiplayer? What's so special about multiplayer? This is a mostly single player game. And I would say, well, not everybody sees it like that. Well, what do you think? Am I just barking at the wind? If someone's watching this later, put something in the comments. What do you think? It's just my hunch. It's just the way I think things might go. I guess the other thing you could do is look across the game. There was always the accusation that No Man's Sky doesn't have depth. Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the reasons I first thought of it. That it makes sense from what they're building and doing at the moment. If you're going to build a game that relies on more of a multiplayer forward approach, then it would make sense to bring some of that into No Man's Sky, even if it's not the full package. Even if Light No Fire is differentiated by the fact that it's much more multiplayer, it still makes sense to use some of that technology. So yeah, but the other thing I would say is look at the look at what we don't have fully developed in the game. It's a bit like the other earlier in the year, was it? Or was it towards the end of last year when I was saying, is it time to give us more options for settlements? And it was, because within a month or so, they had given us more options for settlements. So I was obviously on the money there. So what other things in the game haven't got the depth that they might have? Well, one thing I would have said would have been like bones and salvage scrap. They've both been now given depth, because bones have now been given a gameplay loop. I mean, it's a gameplay loop that not everybody's that into, but some people like it, and it's a different thing to do, and it gives bones a little bit more depth. Salvage scrap, they've given more depth by corvettes, because we now get parts from those. So they've introduced depth to 3 elements of the game that didn't have a lot of depth before. So what's left? Maybe there's a little bit more they could do with building. I don't know. Possibly. I don't think there's an awful lot they could do with building, but there is potential that they could make it. That they messed around with a grid system in the save files, and it might have been an early example of the Corvette build system, and we just thought it was for other things. We might have just been wrong about that. But if they were going to build make a grid system for building, hope they don't get rid of the current system for building, because that would really limit it for glitch builders. I don't think they would. I think they would potentially just add an option, and that could be really interesting, because it would make building for normal players that don't really want to get into glitch building, don't want to mess around,
Storm clearing.
they just want to build what they want to make. That would make it a lot easier. It would bring large and complex bases to more people. And you've only got to look at the inability to build stairs in a lot of different base situations. People get so frustrated with that. Well, they're not glitch builders. A glitch builder doesn't care less about whether you can build something or not. They'll just build it there anyway using a glitch technique. But an ordinary player of the game that doesn't want to do that kind of stuff, it's incredibly frustrating when they can't build what they want to build because the build system's letting them down. Don't really need that. But there might be some scope for building. It'd be nice. Detroit Become Human. Is that the name of the game? Or have I misread what you're saying? Actually, is this going to give me anything? Because I've got a full inventory now. No, it isn't. Oh no, it should do. Nanites anyway. What have I yet to get? So we've got underwater, 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 underwater. All underwater. Are any of them north or south? No. One's nocturnal. They're going to be, both of those are going to be newer ones because they're below the rare, which would usually be last in the list. So that's going to be a predator. And these are going to be newer underwater creatures. We probably want deeper water just in case. Where's my ship?
Radiation protection falling.
Yeah, I'm often looking at Steam sales. I think, well, I could maybe just play something for fun. I know it's radical. I actually play things for fun. I never ever commit. There's always like, I'm not sure if I'm really going to play that, and I just don't get around to it. This time round, I was looking at Steam sales and thought, oh, I could buy that, I could buy that, I could buy that. And then there was a sale for the light that I'm now looking at up there, a key light, and I got that instead. Much water. All these underwater creatures. Is that even a patch of water? It's a tiny one. I have to go to the other side of the planet just in case. Well, let's try this first. It's a purple system, so we could have deeper water even if it doesn't look like much. Not looking very promising though. Getting smaller and smaller as we get closer and closer. Well, let's get the basic creatures.
Extreme radiation detected. Radiation protection falling. Received. Weather warning. Incoming storm. Units received. Received.
That's quite a lot of them. Just got one to get. I think that was nocturnal anyway. Common underwater nocturnal, so we either wait till night or go to the night side. What time is it? Oh, it's nearly night time.
Radiation protection stabilizing.
Enshrouded. Yeah, I've seen a lot of people are having a look at Enshrouded. I watched someone playing it. I think I watched Captain Steve playing it. It's not really my kind of game. I don't think, as you say, it gave you Light No Fire vibes. I don't think that's what Light No Fire is going to be like. I think they're going to defy the genre a little bit. I can't see Hello Games just kind of copying all the other fantasy games, and Shrouded feels very similar to quite a few other games to me. Although nicely done, I'm not knocking it. It's just not necessarily for me. I might have a look at it.
Radiation protection falling.
It's certainly got Tales of a Gasper vibes with the whole enshrouded thing. And it has like the building and certain elements of it I can see. I just don't think Light No Fire is going to be like that. I don't think it's going to be like this either. I think it just looks a bit like this, and so people assume it will be like this. We'll use the engine, of course. It will feel like it in navigation, presumably. But what's the premise? What do we do? I feel like No Man's Sky was almost like a technology without a game originally. And Light No Fire is unlikely to be that. I think it's likely to be... They're likely to have thought of a game first because they already had the technology. Or at least had an idea of how they were going to do the technology. what's the premise? What do you do? What are two of the questions you ask in a game is, who are the characters and what do they do? And then what do they want?
Protection stabilizing.
I'm not. I've said many times I'm not adverse to or averse to playing a different game. It's just it needs to be something I'm really inspired by. To want to stream it, maybe not. I mean, I could stream something without being super inspired by it, but to make other content about it, it would have to be something a little bit more unusual. Just the wrong part of the planet. It's 9:09. Bright skies. I think we might be close to the solar pole. We're not going to see the nocturnal fish. It's not that I never play them. I just don't necessarily play them on a stream. For instance, I did play Tales of Agaspa quite a lot, although I need to revisit that because it's changed quite a lot since I played it. I did play Balatro almost constantly for about 3 months, but I didn't put it on a stream. And then, of course, there's always nighttime here. Is the sun going down or is it coming up? I'm looking towards the south. What's it called? The my brain's gone. My brain's fried. I can't think what it is.
Radiation protection.
The underwater game that's having a second edition soon. Very soon, theoretically. Subnautica, thank you. Just came to me just before I saw it pop up on the thing, but it was on the screen before I said it, so thanks. Sun's coming up. D-nod. Finding water that's deep enough with the sun going down is the trick. I wasn't intrigued enough to play the first Subnautica, but they've had plenty of time to develop it in the background.
Radiation protection stabilizing.
I will wait and see what people make of it before I make that decision. But I might play that. I mean, it has potential. I guess the big question for Light No Fire that hasn't been answered and possibly will make the decision as to whether I actually play it a lot. And it just goes back to that idea of what's the premise. Is Light No Fire a clue to its premise? Is there something related to darkness and light, which sounds like a fantasy idea? Are we supposed to together achieve some goal as a wider community? And if so, it can't be a goal that you just manage to complete, because then that would limit the game. So what is it? Unless there are factions, of course. Maybe there's a dark faction. Were those skeletons player characters?
Radiation protection falling. Received.
Got it. Even then, the sun seems like it's just a very bright planet, I think. What time is it? It's 5. I suppose it could be coming up. It could be dawn.
Detected. Radiation protection stabilizing.
What do we think of the odds that we are going to get some information about Light No Fire at the Game Awards, which is Thursday, is it? I didn't think I'd done that. What if it's like Rust? I wish I knew more about Rust, because people do mention Rust in terms of objectives. I don't really understand how Rust works. So have we completed the other systems? We've done this one, done that one, done that one, done that one. That whole system. No, we haven't done that one. We have done that one. We haven't done that one. Looks like plenty of creatures to find on here. And as that's been my main focus, I might as well continue with that. So Eticlol. heard anything from Gravnaut recently. I keep meaning to drop him a message on Reddit, see if he's around and okay. I don't know if anybody's seen him on any other streams. Rust is an extremely hard or survival core, I presume you mean survival game, where you can build anything you build can be broken and anything you possess. Yes, I've heard this, but what's the overall? What's the overall idea of what you're trying to achieve? Is there some kind of overarching narrative idea, or is it just survive? Because if it's just survive, that isn't going to be Light No Fire. I don't think they'll build an entire PvP system. It just doesn't sound like Hello Games. From the company that brought you the least toxic game, they bring you a new toxic game. It doesn't sound like them, does it? Although I do have it there. Find. You play on servers and there are periodic server resets. Everyone loses all the progress. Oh, I see what you mean. So you're thinking, is it like Rust in terms of, will there be some kind of reset? I'm playing Ark Survival Ascended. I'm glad to hear he's okay. So that's the one that's most promising, I think. New Ramu. Is that one? Yes, it is. I don't know why that's not showing anything. Ground, all rare. Ground found in the south. Ground, all rare. Flying. Uncommon underwater, uncommon underwater, uncommon underwater. Okay. Well, at least they're not rare underwater. Let's start with the underwater. That might be easier. I just think you're obsessed with the Dark Forest theory, Alphas. Unless you mean Dark Forest theory, some kind of IP, as opposed to the thinking about why we don't see aliens. Never been a big fan of Dark Forest theory. I did hear a very interesting version of it the other day, which was really pessimistic. It reminded me of a Greg Egan novel. Anybody ever read Greg Egan novels? They're complex. Australian sci-fi writer, loves writing about individual science ideas.
Received.
really digging into them.
Received.
I once wrote a science fiction story about centers of galaxies, or a center of our galaxy. And of course, the concept that if there are supermassive black holes, or a supermassive black hole in the center of our galaxy, then you could have extreme time dilation and changing of physics, etc. And I don't really remember much of that story. The Dark Forest story idea was that what you could potentially have is civilizations that live deep in the gravity well of the supermassive black hole at the center of a galaxy, and they are highly conservative because they're very isolated, and they become very, very paranoid. They have the advantage of time dilation, so they can develop faster. So if they feel threatened by somebody higher up in the gravity well, they can kind of plan against them, taking advantage of the fact they've got plenty of time to plan, and they can pop up and destroy them. And the idea is that they would be, if they were highly paranoid, then they would not want anybody joining them down in the gravity well, because that's their position of strength. So they would just focus on making sure no other civilization reached the levels of their civilization and could get into that gravity well and potentially threaten them. So it's using the time dilation effect as a high ground, as it were. So the idea would be that if you were stupid enough to start sending signals out, and they felt that you were a threat to them potentially in the future, then they would have thousands and thousands of years to plan, in just like a couple of years of us thinking about it, and then they just come and wipe us out. Lovely idea. I just don't believe that any advanced civilization could ever get that paranoid, personally. It's an interesting concept for a story. It definitely reminded me of the Greg Egan novel, but I can't remember exactly what the premise of that was, but it felt similar. Start putting some of this stuff away. Ground, uncommon flying, uncommon underground. So, ground, it sounds like. I guess it makes sense from a perspective of the way humans think about protecting resources. But to play devil's advocate to my own, I don't believe that the species would be that paranoid. I guess in a universe where any level of paranoia could potentially arise, then it's going to happen somewhere. It'd be unlucky if it happened in your galaxy. There are many, many billions of galaxies out there. I think one of my problems with the dark forest theory is it's never aliens maxim. In the same way that it's never aliens, what's this strange thing that people are looking at in the sky, or what's this strange phenomenon, or it's never aliens because it's just so unlikely to be aliens. I feel like the dark forest theory is well, it's aliens that did it. Why aren't we seeing the aliens? Because aliens. It's just too convenient an answer. Too self-referential. Regret Cadet, interesting name. Do you think if devs did something to eliminate wire glitch building and all things built using method, the game would stabilize? And if so, should they? Well, no, I don't think that, because I don't think they ever would. They have supported it over and over again, to the point where they've broken it and we've complained about it, and they've put it back how it was. And then when they most recently changed the building system, was it Frontiers? They made glitching so much easier and so much more accessible. And I think that has to have been a deliberate choice. Once upon a time, it used to be really hard. The timing used to be really difficult. Now the timing is almost instantaneous. If you make a macro, you only have to say, hit these two buttons at the same time. So it's incredibly easy now. They didn't intend for things like universal adjacency glitching. I don't think they would even have. We had to work that out for ourselves. But I don't think they'd get rid of it, because it allows some really interesting builds. If they don't support glitch building, why is my base at the anomaly? You know, they chose my base to feature up to other people, and it's a glitch base, as are, I think, all of the current featured bases in the anomaly. I think at least 2 of them are probably Blender builds. I know one of them is, possibly 2 of them. And one of them, Crisscross, that's a glitch build. The Dragon Egg one, that's a glitch build. So yeah, I think they like glitch building, they support it, and they would have no incentive to get rid of it. Would it stabilize the game? No, it just piss people off for no reason. Could they just make all of these things possible anyway? Yes, they could. But the problem with doing that is that some glitch builds are quite problematic for lower builds, like Switch or early Xboxes or etc. So they're not likely to encourage us to make highly complex bases without learning difficult techniques. So I don't think they would make it a lot easier than it is. I don't think they would just make it so that we could just build anything. Even though we can when we glitch build. But on the other hand, I don't think they would have any incentive to get rid of it or to disincentivize it. I mean, yes, it does make things harder for them. It does make certain. I mean, I can see the point you're making. I'm not denying that it is a challenging thing for them to support, which is why they don't fully support it. They don't. Glitch building isn't part of the game, and as I say, that they're not going to make everybody be able to make whatever they want. It's a mad thing to do in permadeath. They're not going to just make it so that anybody can do it, just because it would be too tricky to support the game that way. But I mean, it's the classic example, I would imagine. I imagine where that question's partly coming from is the recent glitch building for Corvettes. That's given them a bit of a headache. They probably didn't expect Corvettes to be anywhere near as popular as they were. They probably didn't expect everybody to instantly start using Blender and mods and glitch build techniques, and it's given them a bit of a headache. But I don't think they mind having a headache every now and again. They've never minded before. They've always just rolled their sleeves up and got on with it and tried to find solutions, and I think they'll do that again. I don't think they will necessarily try and stop it happening. They will just try and make it less dysfunctional. Because they have limited base building in the past when it got far too difficult for non-PC players. Which is why we have limits. And we don't have an easy... We used to be able to just be able to change a setting in... Am I just imagining I haven't got anywhere that I can park this? Let's get out of the storm. I'm slightly worried that we're just suddenly going to get some kind of localized weather effect. Where was I? So, where was I? What was I saying? Corvettes. I think they're more likely to come up with solutions that just make rendering easier, and that's one of the things they've done so far. I mean, if you go to the Anomaly now and someone calls in a really complicated Corvette with lots of build parts as opposed to Corvette parts, then a lot of those build parts will have a much lower LOD, level of detail, and they will only render fully when you get up close to them. And you can see that when you try and walk into your Corvette these days. The LOD for the cockpit used to be a lot higher than it is now. They also very quickly made certain Corvettes invisible. So there was... You can only have 4 Corvettes in the Anomaly, but you can have more than 4 Corvettes actually in that instance. It's just that they're made invisible. But they were having difficulties getting them to be invisible properly. So they just put a bit of work into doing that. So that's becoming less and less of an issue now. So the next step will probably be, if you have a highly complex Corvette, they'll possibly only make it visible for PC players. I'd guess that would be one of the things I would do next. So yeah, there are technical solutions they can work on, as opposed to, I think a lot of people that were having difficulties just assumed that they would just clamp down on it. I just don't think it's in their nature to clamp down on those kinds of things. I think they love the creativity of it all, the engagement of it all. So that's the way I see it anyway. And I think that's probably how Hello Games see it. It would be a real shame to clamp down on the creativity of it all. Rare ground, rare ground, rare ground, always active. Found in the cell. And we're in the north, of course. You agree because I made a convincing argument, or is that how you felt about it already? I do feel like there's always been a little bit of an anti-builder faction in No Man's Sky, and that really came to the fore. You still see it now on places like Reddit, where people are very anti certain types of Corvette building because they feel like it's ruining their game. But rather than kind of just ask Hello Games, please sort this out, they're kind of taking it out on the people that are using the tools to make the Corvettes. And I feel like that's a little bit unfair. I mean, just because these tools are only available on certain platforms, for instance, really elaborate Corvette builds, you wouldn't, for instance, build that huge Angel Corvette that someone occasionally takes to the Anomaly with glitch building. It would take you forever. It would be very tricky. You really want to use something a bit more elaborate, like Blender or the Corvette builder for that kind of thing. And to be honest, that's where my interest in building, I'm not that bothered. I can appreciate, I know how difficult Blender is. I've played with it and used it for my own purposes with No Man's Sky building, but mainly to do things like move bases that I wanted to put on different planets, or take measurements of different, if you don't know, some of my early videos are very obsessed with the different measurements of placement of parts, glitch building, part placement. And you only get that kind of measurement from a save file or from using Blender or things like that. So I've had enough experience of Blender to know that it's not just some easy option. And even the Corvette builder, which is based on the base builder, that doesn't make it that easy. You still have to admire what they're making. even if they are importing some kind of skeletal model and then putting parts around that skeletal model, that it still takes a little bit of knowledge and talent and understanding of Blender, and it's creative. Can't get around it. What I wonder is only the effect of if it was stabilized more. I don't know. You don't have to apologize. You give me something to talk about, and that's gold dust when I'm just looking for creatures on a planet where I can't find the blooming things. At least I've got somebody to talk to about things. That's good. Oh no, I see exactly where you're coming from. I just don't think they would ever even think about doing it. So yes, if you could get rid of glitch building tomorrow, you could make anything that wasn't built on a grid invisible or not workable, and break hundreds of bases. But all you would succeed in doing, as far as I'm concerned, is annoying a base building community that have been a very loyal community over many, many years and have played and persevered with the game during periods when it really felt like it was quite under cooked. Some of the most loyal players are base builders. I don't have that kind of entitlement that base builders, therefore, Hello Games owe them something. I've never felt that. But I do feel like they kept up the engagement in the game. But they're right here. Usually one up here somewhere, isn't there? Maybe it's one of these ones with two. But yeah, I mean, I can imagine some games developers taking a very negative attitude towards things like glitch building, actively trying to stop it. I just don't think that's Hello Games. I don't think that's who they are. I think they've always been a company that's been delighted by how many people bought the game and how many people continue to play it. I don't think they knew it was a huge risk. They weren't expecting anywhere near the number of players that played it, even during the period when everybody was saying it was terrible. So it's always, I always find it's a little bit of a false narrative to say that they had to repair it to the point of redemption. I mean, they did, and I'm very grateful for it. But they didn't have to. They made huge amount of money from the game, and people were playing it in large numbers for very long periods of time, even during that period when everybody said they hated it. Far higher numbers than they expected. The year it came out, it was one of, if not the highest played game for the year. Rare ground anywhere in the south. So are we in the south yet? Yes, we are just. always felt like they were very grateful for that engagement, the enthusiasm that the community had, the resistance to the toxicity of people who said they hated it and it wasn't the game they wanted. I think they're very grateful for that kind of attitude amongst the players that embraced it. I mean, yeah, it is a redemption, but on the other hand, I feel like there's a slightly false narrative there. It's not quite the full story. I mean, I'm a big fan of the Engoodening of No Man's Sky video. I think it's a great video. I mean, it bears the test of time. Everybody watches it and everybody loves it. Well, not everybody loves it, actually. Some of them naysayers do think it presents a false narrative, whereas I think it has a lot of truth in it. But I don't necessarily think it's the whole story. Again, if I ever make a video about how No Man's Sky works, then the next big kind of project I would consider doing would be an actual history of No Man's Sky, and from the perspective of development as opposed to just kind of the redemption stuff. Because I think a lot of that is in the public domain. There's lots of videos, lots of interviews. People always say that Hello Games don't really talk about things, but they do. They just don't talk about them in the same way as many other games developers. They don't have the same attitude with the press. In fact, they stopped talking to the press for quite a long while. Nowadays, they deal with the press on their own terms. But it doesn't mean they've stopped talking. There's loads of videos out there of them explaining their game, explaining their thoughts on the game, how they made the game, the way it works. I think that would be an interesting topic to really dig into deeply. That isn't just the redemption arc story. I would like them to make that video completely pointless by writing an autobiography. I'd love Sean or just the team to write some kind of autobiographical book on it. Maybe they'll do that for the 10th anniversary. Maybe they'll surprise us all with how we made No Man's Sky book. It would be quite nice. The true story behind No Man's Sky. Why we're not the nice guys you think we are. This is proving a bit tricky. Had a creature then. There it is. We got him. I like the look of this crab that I'm not finding it. What? Rare ground always active, found in the south. We're in the south. Not far into the south, but it shouldn't matter. There's a really interesting GDC presentation that I think is worth looking at, where Sean talks about developers and satisfaction, job satisfaction. And he says, well, as anybody would do if they were trying to analyze their own satisfaction, they would log it every day and draw a graph, which is absolutely, and he knows fully well that that's not what everybody would do. The only people that would do that would be programmers. He has some very interesting things to say about game development and satisfaction. So yeah, I'd encourage anybody to go and seek that out. But in that, it doesn't conform to the narrative at all of the redemption arc. It just gives you an inkling as to how he saw things. He said things like, well, I think as I was saying earlier, people seem to be liking the game, but there was one thing that came out of the data that we gathered, and that was that a lot of the people that were complaining about the game being boring and leaving the game, they were leaving because they couldn't deal with the inventory system, which was a pain in the neck. And he said, well, that's something I could actually fix. So I did. And I feel like that's that says everything. It's like he just went about fixing the things that people didn't like, that he was able to fix in the order of most likely to make people happy first. That is a redemption arc in a way, but it's, if you look at it from his side, it's not, I want to redeem things. It's, I'd like people to play this game and play it for longer and be happier with it. I think that's an interesting perspective. Didn't have to make them all free, all the updates for free. You didn't have to do that at all, but they did make an awful lot of money, and they did continue to make an awful lot of money. So they didn't have to charge us either. Is this last creature? I had it there when I saw those eye stalks. I thought maybe it's another eye stalk creature. There we are, 300. That's going to be a big creature then. I better not despawn before I get there. $100. .9-meter pineapple. That's what I've been looking for. This game is absurd sometimes. How are we doing? So we've done, that was just the first planet. I think we've done some of the others though. So that's going to be an underwater planet. I don't know if I fancy that. 2 underwater planets. Got a lot of those already. Flourishing. 2 rare ground, always active. 3 rare ground, always active. Might be a bit of a chore, but looks a nicer planet than this. Mod Delta. Not one of those. There it is. Blimey, we're into the 3rd hour. Maybe I'll finish up. Let's see how many creatures we can get quickly and then into the 4th hour rather. 3 hours and 5 minutes. We land near water as opposed to on the water. We might be able to get a lot of them. Oh no, it's ground we wanted on this, wasn't it? Just ground. Would have done the water. Rare ground, rare ground, rare ground. Okay, so we'll go to the land. Nope, there's land here. Oh, is this the... Yeah, I think this was the planet that I was feeling quite seasick on, motion sick on, as the storms are just so ridiculous. Let's ground myself. Actually land. No wonder I did the underwater creatures. think it's that upward motion is just unusual. It just makes you slightly unsettled. And they're not usually quite this bad. That's 2 out of 3. And there's the 3rd. Excellent. Get into space.
Weather update.
Now the storm clears. Okay, so I think I will wrap up there. 3 hours for me is quite a long while. So I start to get a little bit hungry at this point in the day. So it's about 3:30 here. So, and I haven't had any lunch. So I will say goodbye. Travel well. Thanks for chatting and joining me. And I will see you all soon. Cheerio. Hi, Parmenter. Just catching you just before I leave.